So I want us to read a few verses from Hebrews, chapter 12, 5 to 11. It's on the screen. Have you forgotten the warning addressed to you as sons? My son, do not take lightly the discipline of Adonai or lose your heart when you are corrected by him. Adonai disciplines the ones he loves and punishes every son he accepts. It is for discipline that you endure. God is treating you as sons, for what son does not a father discipline? But if you are without discipline, something all have come to share, then you are illegitimate and not sons. Besides, we are used to having human fathers as instructors, and we respected them. Shall we not much more be subject to the Father of spirits and live? Indeed, for a short time they disciplined us as seemed best to them, but he does so for our benefit, so that we may share in his holiness. Now, all discipline seems painful at the moment, not joyful, but later it yields that peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. Remember, the writer to the Hebrews, he's writing to Jewish believers. And these people, they were suffering in all manner of ways. Some had lost jobs, some had lost homes, many had lost their lives. And they were being encouraged to go back to legalism, to Judaism. Now, the Jewish nation have a purpose under God. That has not yet been totally fulfilled. It's been partly fulfilled, but the best is yet to come, when the total fulfillment of the purpose of Israel is made real. So as we look at Genesis chapter 20, we find we're introduced to a situation whereby, Abraham is we're going to go through deja vu. It's happened again. So it says, and Abraham journeyed from there, and so we ask the question, where? So the Lord gives us a starting point, is in Hebron. And after nearly 20 years, he heads south to Gerar in Philistia. Now, when things seemed to be going nowhere, he decided to go somewhere. And like the prodigal son, he went into a far country. Now, this is long before the Jewish nation came into existence. But the Jews, they didn't believe that God was outside the geographical area of the nation of Israel. Do you remember when Naaman is healed of his leprosy? One of the things he does, he gathers up a supply of soil to take back to his native land so that he can spread the soil and use it as a base, as a place to worship on. So you can see every god is localized. Where Abraham has been brought up in the Ur of the Chaldees, it was a local god. And so what you have is this conflict in paganism between the gods of a locality, and the wars are fought to see which god is going to prevail. And it seems to me that Abraham has still got this in his thinking. And very often the Lord is to work hard to get out of us, what other than the word of God has put into us. So he has decided to work independently of God. Nothing's happening. Nearly 20 years. I've been promised a son. He's not here. And I guarantee that if we were to get back there into the period that Abram lived, things wouldn't have been well between him and Sarah. So here we've got this map, and it shows Philistia, but even though it's Philistia, the land of the Philistines, it is still within the geographical bounds of of Canaan that has been granted to Abraham. And you notice the journey now, it doesn't look far between the two dots on the screen, between Hebron and Gerar. What you find is, it's quite a journey, and he's moving his whole household and flocks and everything he's got. But it would appear he again has decided to work independently of God. Now there seems to be a bent, particularly in Christians, when things seem to be going nowhere, they decide to go somewhere. And they go off at a tangent, they go on a tatar. It's a big danger. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings and eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. So it's waiting on the Lord, waiting God's time, receiving strength from him. And that waiting has a twofold meaning. It means to wait patiently, but it means to serve as well. We talk about waiters in a restaurant. They serve. So we're still serving God while we're waiting. We carry on with what the Lord has given us to do. And this notion that we can work independently of God now, we're going to see challenged. So let's consider this. Abram is the friend of God. He is now about to discover and experience the fatherhood of a loving God through his, that is the Father's, concern. Now, there isn't one of us here that the Father is not concerned about. Probably I've given him more concern than anybody else here. But the Father has a concern. Now, that concern is that when we serve the Lord, each one of us has an individual purpose. And that purpose the Lord wants to see fulfilled by each and every one of us. So that concern, he can see what he's doing, and he can see that Abram is going to make the same mistake for the second time. If we don't learn the lesson the first time, under God, he'll make sure we get it the second time. And when the Lord starts to work, he's not easily put off. He's got eternal purposes on his mind. So he realizes that he's going to have to deal with him in a more severe way. As a son, he's his friend, but is also his child. And so therefore, he is going to use chastisement as a form of correction. And that form of correction is so that he can continue his commitment to Abraham. Now, we often talk about, are we committed to God? I want to tell you something, that God is committed to us. It's an eternal commitment. And it's a commitment that he loves us to be involved in. And so therefore, this continual commitment that he's got towards us, at no time does he deal with us in a harsh, unloving, unkind way. Just look at this. As the tender compassions of a father towards his children, so the tender compassions of Jehovah towards them that fear him. That is a translation from Adam Clarke, the great Bible commentator. I love that translation. So he's headed south now, And Abraham, he's headed to be an outsider in enemy territory. Now, Gerar, it simply means a lodging place, and he's viewed as a stranger. And you know, there are some people who have tried to bridge the gap and to be in the world as well as in the kingdom of heaven. And you can't straddle the gulf. But some people do try it, and they find that, yeah, well, I can't stay here. And Abraham is going to find this. It's just a lodging place. Now he has new neighbors, and he has introduced himself and his wife in the same way, with the same way, for the same reason as in Egypt. Now here's the thing. It came to me, we've had a few conversations about my family, and the sort of desire of certain members of my family to be more closely involved than I feel comfortable with. And, you know, the thing is, you know, that God, he gives us our family, but I want to tell you, he gives us our neighbors as well. And wherever we live, the Lord has put us there. I never ever in my wildest dreams expected to be a resident in Northern Ireland. I never expected to be outside of Yorkshire. And the Lord, he had other designs. He got a purpose for me outside of my home county. So he's introduced him as his wife in the same way, with the same way. And what is it? To ingratiate himself, and he introduces himself in this way. Now, God the Father, he gives great cause for concern because the Son has done something. His child and friend has just repeated a flagrant falsehood. A half-truth is not the whole truth. And if you look up all the synonyms, I picked a few choice ones out. It's deceitful, it's dishonest, it's deceptive, it's duplicitous. And in short, it's called lies and hypocrisy. So therefore, if the father has concern and the father is looking after his child, the father, he does not lie, and he cannot allow his child to continue to do so. He is a God of truth. He doesn't just tell the truth, he is truth. I am the way, the truth. He is truth. So as we look at this, the concern is his child and friend has just put in danger certain things. First of all, he's put in danger the mother of the child of promise. Now remember, when the Lord calls us, he calls us according to purpose. And here we see that Abram has a wife, Sarah, and she's going to be the mother of the child of promise. The second thing is, he's put in jeopardy the plans of Adonai's new nation. From that child, there's going to be a nation that's going to succeed Abraham. And again, he's put in danger the innocent family of Abimelech. And so therefore, what we have to understand is that the Father's concern is that we do not step out of the purpose that he's given us. Now, I want to tell you this from experience. The devil will do everything possible to try and deflect us from fulfilling the purpose God has for us. he'll use any means. He doesn't fight by the Queensberry rules. With him, there are no foul punches. Anything goes. And he will deal with us very, very cruelly at times in order, and make it appear as though God is dealing with us cruelly at times in order to deflect us from that which God has intended for us to do. Now, when Abram, set off for Gerar down in Philistia, he did all this by himself, just by acting on a fleshly impulse. And we had a discussion yesterday. How do I know that God's telling me to do this? How do I know it's not me? Here we see that the Lord had made certain covenant promises to Abraham. And these promises had yet to be fulfilled, but he was impatient in many ways. And had he have thought about this, he would have thought to himself, well, the promises of God have not been fulfilled. Let me be patient. Do you remember the Lord speaking a parable, and he talks about something not bearing fruit? And he uses this illustration. I'll dig it and apply fertilizer. I'll dung it. I'll dig it and dung it. Now, as you grow plants, you have to be patient. You can't make the plant grow any faster by talking to it or doing anything to it. You've got to wait for the fullness of time. So, it's good to check, did this feeling come from God? Well, the Lord, he's a gracious God. Dr. Lloyd Jones, in his book, Spiritual Depression, Its Causes and Cures, he says it's best to define any feeling. Is it from God or is it from the devil? It's very difficult. And you've got to really rely on God and go to his word to make sure that you're acting according to the Spirit and not the flesh. So this gives the Father cause for concern, and it gives God, the Father, cause to correct and chasten his child. Now the Lord knows what is best for his children, and he knows whether a good talking to or a clip behind the ear is necessary. So he does something spectacular. Now remember that God is a God of truth. And the first thing that he does, Abram could never have conceived this, never. If God is a God of truth, the only way to kill a lie is to tell the truth. That's the only way that you can kill a lie. Tell the truth. So, he exposes Abram and his lie to Abimelech in a vision. Now imagine, he wouldn't sleep much after this when the Lord appears to him and he says, you are a dead man. And Abram was supposed to be a blessing. But because he went under false pretenses, he became a curse to the man. And Abimelech, he'd taken, as we read, he'd taken Sarah, and he was going to put her in his harem. Now we have to think about the actions that we take in this way. You know, if I'm going to be a blessing, I cannot be a danger to this person. And the Lord has to intervene, and the first thing it does, the person that Abraham, has told the lie to, the Lord reveals the truth. And the Lord, truth will out. And he says, you are a dead man, she is married. And of course, Abraham declares his innocence. Now, do you remember the reason why Abram told the half-truth? He goes on to say, I feared that I thought that God was not in this place, that the fear of God was not here. So as we look at this, we find that he has assessed the situation wrongly. Abimelech declares his innocence and he pleads. And he says, I myself knew that you did this with integrity, the Lord says. The integrity of your heart. So yes, I myself prevented you from sinning against me. That is why I did not allow you to touch her. The Lord didn't allow him to commit adultery with another man's wife. So the Lord, he is actively disciplining, even before he gets to Abraham himself, he's actively disciplining him, and he's making Abimelech aware of what has been done. So this gives God the cause to chasten, correct his child in this way. Here is the cutting of the scourge. Whoever the Lord loves, he scourges every son that he receives, chastises, he whips. So now he says to Abimelech, here's the cutting edge of the scourge. So now return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, a man of God. Wow, what an embarrassment. We've got someone who's told a lie, and the Lord says to the person that he's told the lie to, he's a man of God. He's a prophet. What an embarrassment to be caught out in this way. And he says, not only is he a man of God, let him pray for you and you will live. So the person that you might at this moment in time think, that we would say today, call yourself a Christian, is now brought to the place whereby the man that he's deceived, God has said, let him pray for you and you will live. What an embarrassment for Abraham. So, we know the story, we've read the story, and we see that there is a caveat to what God has told Abimelech to do. But if you do not return her, know that you will surely die, you and all who are yours. My mother's family, she had a brother, and in those days, things in chapel, Methodist Church, if you like, were not quite as, if you like, kindly and loving as they are today, probably. Unfortunately, Uncle Fred had to go when he was a boy to this Sunday school, and as he was going into the Sunday school, the superintendent noticed there was a patch on his breeches seat, and for that reason, he turned him out. You couldn't get Uncle Fred through the doors of the church for the rest of his life. He died an unbeliever. And sometimes our actions drive people further away from God when we're not acting in the Spirit. So, Abimelech's confrontation. And notice just how Abimelech feels in this. What have you done to us, and how have I sinned against you, that you brought great sin upon me and my kingdom? You've done to me things that should not be done. What a condemnation. What the Lord is doing, the Lord is confronting Abraham not by himself, but is using Abimelech. Now, how cutting are those words? And the Lord sometimes will do this. And so he brings Abraham to a point of confession. So when God made me wander away from my father's house, I said to her, this is your loyalty that you must show me in every place we go. Say of me, he is my brother. Now, the Lord, first of all, didn't make him wander. The Lord said, follow me to a land that I will show you. The wandering was all Abraham's doing. And he said, when we left the Ur of the Chaldees, this is your loyalty, that you must, now notice the imperative here, you must show me. In every place we go, say of me, he is my brother. Bottom line, I lied, and I made my wife to lie. Now the Lord, he's correcting Abraham in such a way, there's no wriggle room. He's been confronted. Then Adonai did something, and in chapter 21, verses 1 and 2, there's this continued commitment. And this continued commitment, then Adonai visited Sarah just as he had said, and Adonai did for Sarah just as he had spoken. So Sarah became pregnant and gave birth to a son for Abraham in his old age, at the appointed time that God had told him. Now in all this, the continued presence of God was not left behind in Hebron. It was there in discipline and correction when he was in a place that he shouldn't have been in. And to what purpose? And the purpose was this. He was corrected to complete the purpose of his calling. Now, when the Lord is dealing with his people, and he's bringing them back into line, they're corrected in order that they might complete the purpose of the calling that God has for them. Short and sweet this afternoon, but I think it's clear to us that in our daily life, the most important thing is to stay within the sweet, beloved will of God. Our anchor and our fortress hill. It's the safest place to be. And when tempted, make sure that we are honest, just as honest as our Father is honest, and that we can continue with the commitment and we don't make shipwreck of our lives. Let's sing a final song, shall we? Then will you pray in, please?